Hello and welcome into the Gale Force Studios. I'm your host, Ronnie West, and this is High Traffic Ideas, the podcast that's here to help you kind of understand and digest a lot of these bigger issues that might be a little complicated when it comes to marketing, content, websites, and more. Uh, I just want to be able to kind of deliver this. Running a marketing agency, I get to do this all day. But if you're running a small business or working a 9 to 5, trying to start up a side hustle, there's lots of things that are going to occupy your time and take things away. I want to make things efficient and quickly understandable for you so that you can manage and efficiently use your time and get your passion off of the ground and take it to the next level. Today, we are going to cover a couple different things, but I just want to get started and jump right into my high traffic idea brought to you by iMagnet. It is the fact that using AI is key to growing your business. But I think the thing that you need to understand is the fact that you you want to be real, not robotic. I think is the kind of the biggest thing I want you to take away from this. And understanding you can use AI, but don't sound like a machine when you're doing it. One of the things that I have been constantly preaching to a lot of my clients has been kind of this three-pronged approach when you're posting online. And specifically, this is meant for Google Business Profile updates and the posts that go in there just because it's so important, but it works for all social medias as well. The key thing I want you to think about is it's along the lines of the who, where, what kind of thing. It is the where I think you want to be aware of is the location, where you're at, where are you installing this film? Where is this car from that you're installing? Kind of making sure that you're hitting your local market whenever you're creating that post is making sure to have a location. Tell the where of where you are, because essentially the majority of the clients, and since we work with majority window tint shops, your clients are coming from your local area. So making sure that you're targeting that area with the words, if you're uploading images, especially too, if you have an Apple, they're going to be geolocated. You can go on and use GeoImager and add location data if there's not, but making sure that you have that where included within that post is super key. The next is the what. What did you install on those things, on those cars, on those businesses, on the windows in the lobby? Understanding what the product is to go with the where makes it a lot easier to get to the third part, the why. Why was this film installed? Letting the next customer know, your next potential customer, know why that film was installed. Why did they get paint protection film? Because they were dealing with rush hour traffic and they had to drive along a dirt road in parts of it and they wanted to protect that vehicle. The reason you put up solar control window film on this apartment building or the commercial office building was to kind of prevent the glare that people were dealing with, and maybe employees weren't being as productive as they needed to, or putting on this automotive tint because you were dealing with the glare or UV rays coming on the left side and dealing with skin cancer, since it is Skin Cancer Awareness Month this May. I think taking all of those into account and using the where, the what, and the why, and putting that all into one singular post is going to help your organic content tenfold. So my high traffic idea, use the where, what, and the why to kind of create your content. And if you're using kind of a Claude or Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, kind of AI software to kind of generate those social posts, make sure you're reviewing it. Don't just copy paste it. Make sure that you're taking a look at it, understanding exactly what it's saying, and that it makes sense to you so that it's not confusing to the customer when they try to digest the information that you're giving them. So take with that, and I hope that that makes sense. And you can kind of utilize that in different ways. And the one thing I kind of wanted to mention too is that since this was brought to buy iMagnet Management, one of the products that we're now offering is the reputation package. And so, just like I said, if you're trying to create these pieces of content, and whether you're having trouble with them or you feel like you're spending too much time on one of the platforms and you just aren't getting them out to other ones, utilize our reputation package. It's 95 bucks a month, and it gives you the opportunity to post across all of these social platforms. I've also installed an AI prompt kind of library, so you can go in there for solar control, PPF, security film, decorative film. Go in there and grab those prompts, kind of edit it to exactly like I mentioned, the where, who, and why, the where, what, and why, and putting that into Claude or any of these LLMs, and be able to get back a highly engaging social media post that hopefully will kind of drive traffic to your website. So if you guys have questions about that, reach out. My email is right down here, and we can kind of get that started going for you. So just shoot me an email at ronnie@imagnetmgt.com. But the reason that we're having this episode is the fact that I wanted to kind of discuss understanding your website. I think it's super key and vital to really get to know why you have this website, what is it actually offering you and bringing you, and how can you make sure that you're maximizing it in the best way possible. And I think the biggest part of that is actually understanding like what this website is. And I think I hear a lot of customers and clients kind of throwing out kind of the wrong terminology, or they just don't fully understand it, or they get really confused when we try to talk about it. Obviously, I talk a lot, I talk fast, and I always want to make sure that the customer understands what we're doing. We're not trying to talk over you. There might be some complicated pieces with it, but the key is to ask questions. And thankfully, I've had a few customers ask some of these questions. And luckily, I kind of have an analogy that kind of takes care of all of this under one roof. And I don't mean that as a pun, but I do. I want you to start thinking about your website as if it's a house. And if you're a homeowner, you can definitely understand how there's lots of moving pieces within home ownership. And understanding a lot of those makes things kind of easier when you're jumping in, moving into a house. First time homeowners, there's a lot, and it can get very overwhelming. And it's no different for a small business company or anybody that has a side hustle that's trying to jump into getting their first website and not understanding all of these terms. So one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of make sure that you can fully understand in an easily digestible analogy that I'm kind of going to kind of run through everybody here over the next few minutes. So the key with understanding your website, and it usually always starts with like a .com, and that is your domain. And understanding that your domain is essentially your address. It is where people can find you. When somebody's typing in the GPS, it's no different than somebody typing into the keyboard to understand, like, how am I going to get to your location or get to your business website? You need to have an address. And so that's why it's no different. You're going to hear different terms like URL or your sometimes it's called the permalink is usually what we'll hear is like the last half after the .com. But essentially your domain is going to be your business.com, .net, .org, whatever it might be. That is essentially what you go and purchase at like a GoDaddy. And a lot of times those have renewals. So making sure that you're checking on those when that time comes up, because your .com might expire, and then that could cause other issues along the way. I know with GoDaddy, they now offer like a three-year process. So like High Traffic Ideas, we have a 3-year domain certificate, and then we're going to have to renew that when that time is up. And so the thing to think about with all of that, though, is you own that as long as you renew it. So making sure, just like my home here, I own essentially the address. I have to pay payments. The bank owns the house. But essentially, you own that website, and wherever you go, you can bring it with you. So essentially, if I wanted to bring this house, if I wanted to move to Texas, I could bring that house with me. So that's essentially what we're talking about with that email address, not the email, the URL or your domain. You're going to be able to kind of move that around. You're going to want to make sure that it's easy to remember too. I think that goes along with just kind of when you're creating your business name, and that might be 5 steps behind you. But think about any of the major companies that we see out there: Apple, Tesla, NVIDIA. They're all one name, very short. Obviously, I went backwards when high traffic ideas, it's 3 words. But I think the shorter and more memorable you can make your name, the easier it is to remember, to lock in. With iMagnet, one of the things that when you're getting your domain, you can purchase multiple domains. So obviously, if you're reading down the corner, it's iMagnet, like your eye, but we've also gone in and registered the letter I, magnet.com as well. So if you type that in, it'll redirect you to our website no matter what. So you can have, that's the thing that's slightly different than owning a house, is that you can have different addresses essentially all associated. So essentially you have your mail forwarded to one address. So the one thing I think people get confused with a lot of times is domain and hosting. And so essentially hosting is going to be the plot of land that this house sits on, or the street, either one of those. I'm going to stick with plot of land because that's the easiest to understand. So essentially your domain is that address, the numbered address is your .com. The hosting is going to be that plot of land. And like I said, you can pick up and move that address to a different plot of land. And essentially the plot of land is a server. And so at iMagnet, we have servers set up for our clients, and that is where we host their website, which essentially is file folders of images, documents, code, videos, whatever it might be. And so all of that is encompassed and held on a particular server. And so that is what hosting is. That is where your website actually lives, is on that server. And typically you're renting space from whoever owns that server. And a lot of times you'll hear people that they've built their own server, so then they kind of bypass that. A lot of small businesses, obviously we don't assume everybody is fully tech savvy enough to build their own server and host it on their own. So a lot of times people will have a company like ours or many others that are out there that will host that website for you. That typically comes at like a monthly fee. You might be able to pay a yearly fee as well. It's slightly more expensive, or I shouldn't say slightly, it's typically more expensive than the domain. The domains are usually about 20 bucks. Depending on if it's a very popular domain name, the .com, you might be paying more. Whereas hosting, typically your fees can range quite a bit depending on the services that that hosting company provides. And like I said, that website or that house can be moved from transferring to different servers. We call it a migration. We can migrate your website over to our servers. That usually is a fee for most companies. And then once it's on those servers, there's going to be typically a monthly fee to kind of manage it, keep up with it, making sure that that plot of land doesn't turn into a sinkhole. And that's one of the things too to consider, is the quality of that land, the quality of that server, of that agency. A lot of times there's the server speeds. If they're very old servers, typically that means that your website's going to take a long time to load up. There's going to be uptime, upkeep, security, different things that are going to kind of go with that. So that's essentially putting your house on sand or a solid foundation of grass and dirt and soil, or putting it on bedrock. Like there's going to be different kinds of servers that are going to offer different kinds of things in that matter. Making sure that your website has a proper place, right server that fits your needs is going to be key. If you have something with a whole bunch of service pages or location pages, you're going to need a server that's going to be able to manage all of that. And versus somebody who may have a slimline site that we've built for them, which is like 5 pages. It's going to be slightly different server needs that you're going to have. The next piece is essentially your web development work, the design. Essentially, think of that as the construction of your house or the renovations that you might have a house and you've moved it to this new location, but you want to add on some things. You want to add on a sunroom. You want to you want to add on an extra garage space. So there's going to be different things, and all of that's kind of associated with the build out. The coding of the website is the construction of the website. The layout, the extra pages, all of those things that you might want are all kind of included in that web development work. So essentially, whether it's interior design, so essentially like you want to have paintings on the wall, different things that can go like your fonts. You want to change the colors of your logo, or you want to update the logo and match the colors of the website to a particular theme. Different branding kind of updates are going to be involved. If all of a sudden my wife wants to rip up all the carpets and put in new ones and paint all the walls, that's kind of what's all included in the web development work, that you kind of all of a sudden want to update a few different things. And that's something that we're seeing a lot of customers kind of come to us right now, especially kind of launching into the busy season. Different functionalities, added forms. If you want to have a contact form, essentially that's no different than like the plumbing or the electricity of the house. There might need to be stuff that needs to be rewired that's a little more technical than just the colors and different stuff like that. And that's definitely something, if you're coming to iMagnet, I'm definitely somebody who can help with the colors, but I can't help with your electricity and the plumbing and the technical features. And that's why we have Matthew, who is actually going to be on the show in a couple weeks before I head down the Film Fest to kind of walk through some of these different things and the different techniques and software upgrades and different things like that that might go into some of those technical features. And again, any renovations, you got to dig out, your basement flooded, all of a sudden the server went down, and so in your site's offline and there's different things. All of that's going to be kind of encompassed within that web development work that has to go in there and update different things and kind of weed through it. And then there's a lot of other features that, again, these are things that I'm still slowly learning because I'm not a web developer. I am a marketer. I've built websites, but obviously not to the technical fashion that Matthew has for a lot of our clients that we've built out some crazy expansive websites. For me, if you've gone to hightrafficideas.com, you can kind of see that is one that was vibe coded with Claude. I've built clients past websites in the past, and a lot of those have been on like Squarespace and Wix. We now use WordPress, and I'm definitely very functional with the Elementor and Cornerstone and Xtheme and some of these other kind of building softwares that go into that construction. And so that's where those kind of come into play. But some of these items here, I'm not specifically the expert in. I just want to make sure that you guys have a full understanding of these things so that when you're talking with your web developer, that you're asking these questions and making sure that you fully understand what is going on with your website. So the first one we're going to touch on is the SSL certificate. This is essentially your security system, the locks on your doors, making sure that you're keeping the people who are visiting your website, or essentially you've got family in town, that they're going to be protected. And so that is something to kind of look into, the SSL certificate. It's kind of it shows the padlock in the browser, and it's required for trust and Google rankings. So keeping that in mind, asking those questions. I don't want to sit here and say that I know exactly what all these pieces are and how they're integral to the website. It's just something I have seen quite frequently. Sometimes you need to update and renew some of these SSL certificates. There's going to be, whether they're within your plugins or just regular upkeep, making sure that you're asking about those so that you're not being susceptible to any kind of hackers or some sort of system failure within your website. The next one is the content management system. So a CMS like WordPress, Wix, those are kind of, like I mentioned, or the builders within the framework. And essentially they're the blueprint or the floor plan. So then you actually know where to go so that you're not knocking out a wall that doesn't need to be done, that you're able to kind of rearrange some stuff within the house and not do some severe damage and a lot of extra work that isn't needed. Um, yeah, it lets you make changes without needing a contractor for every little thing. So just understanding where everything is placed, understanding your WordPress, the back end is what we call it. The front end is going to be the parts that everybody sees online. And then the back end of the website is where you log in typically to WordPress, Squarespace, whatever it might be. And it'll show you all of the pages. And that's where you can kind of audit different pieces. Typically, when we do like an SEO audit, we're going to need to go to the back end of the website and take a look at your service pages, your location pages, the home page, making sure that Google is seeing all of those things run properly so that it's optimally being shown to anybody that's searching. The next one, like I've mentioned it a few times, the plugins or extensions. Those are essentially like your appliances within the house, the add-ons, the dishwasher, the security cameras, the smart thermostat. So, and one of the ones that we use quite a bit is like Google Site Kit or Rank Math. And so those are pieces that, whether it's you have Google Ads, in order to see conversions, we need to have this plugin, kind of an add-on feature to your website. It's not required for everybody, but if you're doing different things, you're going to want to make sure you have those plugins and connections. Whether you're wanting to connect your TintWiz reviews or having a social media feed, there's going to be different plugins that you're going to need to update and add in so that you have access to some of these higher end features on your website to kind of make it look a little bit better. It adds, so essentially they're critical, but often overlooked. So that's sometimes you'll see broken links and different things that don't make sense. Typically, I just had one today where a customer, I was looking at his website and all of a sudden his homepage, there was no image that I had just seen a day or two ago, and went into the back end and there was a plugin that needed to be updated. Went in, updated that slider, Revolution, I think it was called, and all of a sudden, poof, then the images are back and he's got this rotation of images versus just all text. So making sure that you have those is critical, because if you have a potential customer coming to your site and it just doesn't look right, or just there's too many words for a lot of people and they want to see images, people are very visual. And if you have these broken pieces where you're not able to kind of see images, cars, the stuff that you want to show the customers, you might lose them just from them going into your website. Another big one is bandwidth. So essentially your website speed. So essentially we will correlate this to your driveway. Like, how big is your driveway? How many visitors can you have? If you're like Apple or a major distributor, you might want a parking lot versus a driveway. You want to be able to have a whole bunch of people come to your site and it not crash. Whereas if somebody who is in a very small town, they have a very niche industry, they might just have a 6-7 car driveway, and that's all they really need to fit in. Somebody might even be smaller. If you're just a trinket shop and you're just wanting to sell different pieces and you only kind of go to craft fairs, your 4-car driveway might work for you. So understanding kind of how much bandwidth speed does my website have and how many visitors am I able to kind of hold at once is very key. Too small and traffic gets backed up. Larger sites need larger driveways, or parking lots. So that is another big thing to ask is like, what is my bandwidth speed? One of the things that you'll often see too is when you visited a site that takes a while to load, like it takes, and when I say a while, it might take 3 or 4 seconds for it to load instead of instantly kind of coming online. Those are the places that you want to make sure you're not losing a customer because they're getting impatient and don't want to wait those 4 or 5 seconds for your website to load. They're going to go to somebody else who's manages their website properly and is able to kind of have somebody visit their site, move them along. People will get irritated and be very impatient. So making sure that your bandwidth speed is up to par is very key. And lastly, one of the things that we focus on, SEO. And this is something I think a lot of people throw around, just like hosting that I mentioned before. They don't fully understand what it means, but they hear it all the time, so they want to use it as if they know what they're talking about. So SEO is essentially the signs on your lawn, the landscaping, your curb appeal. This is how you're able to be seen. Essentially, you're trying to have a curb appeal to Google so it shows you to everybody else. But also, anytime someone is sharing a page or a blog article that's on your page, you want to make sure that they're sending that share piece that essentially is the SEO title, the meta description, and the image, that it's not a blurry image, that it's not a blank meta description that has no description as far as what that person is sending you. So making sure that you're updating all of those pieces on the back end is what's going to help you kind of show up in that organic content, which again, if you're not spending money on ads, you need to be hammering the Google business profile, because that's what's going to help your organic content kind of show up or show up in the map pack. And if you're doing anything on your website and making sure you're hitting popular keywords for your niche or for your industry, that is how you're going to kind of show up on page one and be one of the top spots that's up there, is by continually updating your website, making sure that you're having these kind of keywords highlighted within different pages or different articles that you're writing about it. And so it makes your address show up when people are looking for houses like yours. So versus your competitors, you're going to want to make sure that your SEO is better than the shop down the street. Good curb appeal equals more visitors walking up to the door. Obviously, that's not something that we want, but when you have a home, but I think having that look when somebody walks by your house, or like, ooh, I like the way that looks, maybe take a picture, kind of share it with somebody. That's essentially what you're wanting for your website, is for somebody to want to share what information you have with their family and friends, because that's one of the biggest pieces of marketing, is word of mouth marketing. So kind of going back through all of these pieces, understanding that your domain is your address, it is your .com, the URL that's up on top of the screen. Your hosting environment, that is your plot of land, that is where your website resides. The construction of your website is essentially like how it's built, different pieces, that is your web development. And with the web development is essentially the content management system. What kind of builder are you using? Is it a DR Horton? Is it just somebody down the street, somebody's grandpa? Like, who is building this piece that has the proper blueprints to kind of show you, don't knock out that wall, don't do this over here. Your SSL certificate is your security system. How protected is your website from hackers, from any kind of system failure? Are you able to be prepared? One of the things I forgot was backups. Having an insurance policy on your house, making sure that you have backups in order, if your site goes down because you updated a plugin, that you have a backup file folder with essentially your website data in it, so that you can upload that immediately and then fix the problem and update it to that next version, but you'd still be online and be able to kind of receive visitors and the site isn't down. Plugins and extensions, like I just mentioned, those are your add-ons, the appliances, the hot tub in the backyard, the gazebo, the different extra pieces that you want to add on are no different than like the different brandings and stuff that we talked about. And again, the bandwidth, the driveway. How many visitors can you take in? Do you need a parking lot, or do you just need a regular sized driveway in order to kind of take on these visitors and not have your site crash? And then again, the SEO. This is something us at iMagnet, we do like an SEO refresh for $200 where we'll go in, check on all of those service pages, make sure that they're all being optimally seen by Google and that you're not kind of having any missed information. Typically, one of the plugins that we always use and that you might see if you jump into the back end of your website is Rank Math or Yoast SEO. So those are kind of give us like a grading system for every one of those pages to make sure that you have a green light or an A grade for the SEO, especially on your front page, on your home page. That is an absolute must. If your homepage has poor SEO, no one is seeing you. But as well as the homepage, you want to make sure that your service pages are on par and on point with every piece of SEO that's listed in them. So again, like I've mentioned, we have a lot of different things that you need to kind of understand when you go into kind of starting off with a website. But I hope that this made things a little bit more digestible, a little more easier to understand as far as websites go. And so one of the things I wanted to mention was at iMagnet, we have typically had a higher purchase price to get your own website. And one of the things that we are rolling out this month is a new monthly payment plan. So you're able to kind of get one of the higher end websites that we build, but not for that big price to start off. We have a couple different options that you can go check out at our website and look at the website development plans that we offer. But if building a new website is something that you feel is in your future, if you've had a website for, I would say, over 4 or 5 years, there's a good chance you definitely need to refresh it in some sort of way. But if you're looking to completely rebuild and want to have all of the bells and whistles that you're looking for, but you just can't stomach a giant price point, you can probably look at some of our monthly plans and see if that works for you. We want to make this much easier for a lot of the customers that we work with. You might be a small or medium sized tint shop, but just don't have the budget in place in order to kind of take that big bite out of a brand new website. And this way you can have that opportunity. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at Ronnie at iMagnetMGT, or you can also email Matthew at iMagnetMGT, since he is our web developer. If you want to reach out to him directly and get those questions answered, we want to be able to help you kind of grow your business to the next level. I hope that some of this can help you kind of guide you and make you a little more educated, whether you're working with any kind of marketing agency or even with our own. We want to make sure that we have informed customers, no different than you. You want to make sure that you can inform your customers to kind of ease that sales process. And if there's things that I can help answer questions that you have, please reach out. Whether you leave them in the comments, you put them on to social media, or you just email me directly. Any of those will work. I want to be able to help you. It is my passion to make sure people fully understand what they're getting into and don't feel like they're getting ripped off, because things are getting very technical the way that AI is out there and making things easier, but also making things more complicated. So I hope this helps. Once again, this episode was brought to you by iMagnet Management. We are here to help and make sure that people see your business, whatever size business you have, especially in the window tint community, but we work with a lot of other industries as well. So I want to thank you again. I am Ronnie West of iMagnet. This has been High Traffic Ideas. We have been coming from the Gale Force Studios. Gale Force Studios. We will talk to you later, and have a good one.